Hey guys, good afternoon. It's me again. I hope you have a good day today. And let's talk about the basic process of making a bread or the fundamentals of baking a bread. So, when we say fundamentals, it is the basic. When we say it's the basic, it is the most important process. It is the most important thing we need to know before we start baking, because when we say basics, we always go back to the basics. Even if um, even if we know the basics, when we want to learn, when we know the basics, when we want to learn something, we always go back to the basics, right? So that's why it is very important. Basics, knowing the basics is really important. Okay, so how do we make a bread dough? Okay, the first thing we need to consider or we need to do is called the mise en place. So what do we mean by mise en place? I think you already know what mise en place means. It means preparing ahead of time or preparing all the ingredients first prior to what you're gonna cook or what you're gonna bake. Okay, that's the first thing we need to do. Mise en place. You know, um, gather all the ingredients for your bread, measure them correct accurately, and yeah. And set them aside. Okay, the first thing we need to do is called proofing the yeast, but it's not. It's actually optional, guys. It's not really required. But in our bread and pastry class before, we were required to really, really see to it that our yeast is active. That's why we proof the yeast. So what happens in proofing is that you're gonna put your active dry yeast in a water or milk, in a water, or you can put it in a water nga na sugar gamay for sugar for something, because yeast is a fungus. It's actually a living organism. It helps the bread rise, and it needs to feed on something in order to be active. So pwede ra siya ibutang og water with sugar. And also you can use milk para mas daghan og makonsume nga nutrient ang imong yeast. Mas kusog siya ma-activate. Okay? So but in today's time, I think my cousin who has a bakery, I go there from time to time. They don't really proof the yeast. They don't really proof the yeast. They just put it directly into the mixture. Kay anyways man mo inig mix nimo tanan, mabutangan magyapog water ang imuhang mixture mo tong mo-activate ra gyapon siya. But if you want to be really sure nga your yeast is active, then you proof your yeast. You do these steps proofing the yeast. Kay most commonly man gud ang yeast dili siya ma-active kung na-expire na siya or maybe hungaw ang sudlanan. So, mo na siyang i-proof para makasure kang nga active imo ang yeast. Okay? So, let's go to that's right. The original form of active dry yeast did not really require that. Yes, that's what I told you. Did not really require that you hydrated it yet. I hydrate it prior to adding it to your dough. However, these days it does not require this. You can add either active dry yeast or rapid rise yeast into your dough without proofing, or you can choose to proof them if you like. Okay, it's optional, guys. But to consider the traditional or the kung follow ta sa teachings yun, we have to proof the yeast first. Okay, now let's go to the mixing process. Now the most common type of um, mixing the dough is called straight dough method. In this method, all the ingredients are mixed together at one time. After kneading, the dough is set aside for single fermentation. So that's the most common method to do. And all other method, we're gonna discuss it as we go along the way, as we go along the topics in bread and pastry. Okay, so mixing, we already know what mixing is. It's combining all the ingredients together to create a dough. Yeah. Okay, after combining all ingredients, kanang mura na siyang mulapot-lapot gamay nga dili na kanang dili na ingon ba nga uga kaayo. Then we proceed to kneading the dough. So what happens in kneading, it's like kneading is a term used when you mura gyapon kog kag mura ni magimasa ang pan para maka-create kag more gluten, which will be the most important part in making a bread, para maka-create kag gluten structure. So that's why you need to knead your dough. You can put kung tapot siya kay sa kamot, you can use flour para dili siya kay mutapot sa imong kamot. Then you knead it. Kneading the bread dough is important process because it develops gluten structure, which strengthens the bread. It also creates more even crumb for the final product, improves the flavor of the bread. But also you can knead the dough if you have a stand-up mixer. Okay, you just have if you have a stand-up mixer and you have this dough hook that will that will make a simulation similar to what your hand is gonna do when you're kneading. Okay, when you're gonna knead with your hands, we probably have to knead for about 8 to 10 minutes. Muna mura jud kag ma-exercise kay kapoy kay sige duot no kung mag-knead ka. Anyways, I'm gonna give you a YouTube link, guys, for you to see how to do this steps. It's actually pretty easy. It just requires strength and patience. Okay. Now this topic is gonna be short, so okay. Okay, let's go to bulk fermentation, or what we call as the first rise. So after kneading, now to check if you are already done with the kneading process, na mga bakers nga mag-use og kanang window pane method, in which they're gonna ilang inaton ang ilang dough para makita sila magisi ba or unsa kabaga ang ilahang gluten structure. But for easy checking, the most appropriate talaga naman the most appropriate nga form kung bread ka, dapat dili siya mo elastic na bitaw siya, inig ka binat nimo, dili na siya murag nay magbuho, dili na siya murag dali magisi, inig ka inat nimo, elastic na siya ba ang form, ang quality sa imuhang dough. But other way to check it is you form it into a circle and then you press it with your fingers unya kung mubalik siyag dali, that means to say nga nanay naka-form na gluten structure imuhang dough. Pero kung inig tuplok ni what do you call this, imuhang tuplokon ang dough paubos ug dili siya mobalik, that means to say you need to knead the dough more. So in bulk, after kneading, you will go to the process called bulk fermentation. So what happens in this process? You're gonna put your dough mixture into a bowl, put a little oil on it para lang dili siya mo tapot inig ka-rise sa imuhang dough. And it is allowed to rest and ferment. Okay? Fermentation occurs when the yeast begins to feed on the starches and sugar present in the dough As the yeast feeds, carbon dioxide is produced, which makes the dough rise and develops the texture and flavor of the bread. So in this process kanang to find out nga you're already good with the bulk fermentation, try to see to it nga double na yung size, dili triple, double yung size. Kung mo triple na, masobraan na po na siya. Munang double, if the size is doubled already, then it's good to go. It's good to go. The first thing you need to do is you're gonna punch it. You're gonna punch the dough to release all the air created, and try to put it into the center niya. Remove it, and the next thing you need to do is shape your dough to whatever shape you want to. You want circles, you can do it, or you want footlong, you can do it footlong style or bun style, burger bun style, whatever you want, whatever you like. Hey, depends upon your what you're making. Okay, so that's the next step, the shaping. The sixth step is proofing. Okay, proofing or proving, it is the second rise. So what do we mean by this? After we shape the bread, after natong purma sa bread, kanang after natong shape sa bread, i-allow na pud nato siya nga mo rest unya, padubolo na pud ang ihang size. If you guys are wondering why this is called proofing, it is called proofing because kung mutubo ang inyong pan, it means to say it is a proof that the yeast you are using is alive. So the bread is alive. That's why it's called proofing. Okay? It's actually the same fermentation process is happening during this step. The process number 3, or the third process, is kind of similar to the process we are doing in the sixth step. But this is where the shaped dough gains the bulk of its volume. Typically shaped bread dough should rise until double in size. That's what I told you. So once it doubles its size already, then you can put it in the oven already. Anyway, guys, if we're making a bread, guys, there is actually a recipe and there is actually a procedure that we're gonna follow. So it's not really that complicated. The procedures are not really that complicated. Kaya kung if you're gonna cook even in the kitchen or whatever, part of the food production department, there is always a recipe. There is always a recipe to follow. Munang moingon na ta nga maayo na sila chef aning mga yani because nangaraan na sila buhat aning recipe and they mastered how to do it already. They mastered the process already on doing this because of repetition. So if you keep on repeating something, then the result is you're going to be a master of what you're doing. So that's what happened. That's what happens when maanad na si chef, because he constantly keep on doing the same process over and over again. Okay, because but the first time jud mo follow jud na sila sa recipe, because each restaurant has their own standard. So mao na siya. Okay, so that will be the end of our lesson, our discussion for today. I told you it's pretty basic, it's pretty short. And guys, I want you to familiarize yourselves with the baking terms. Okay, it's gonna be part of your assessment, and please just familiarize. Okay, thank you and keep safe, guys. See you soon. Bye bye.